All right, everybody. Welcome to the Golden Note podcast. My name is Jesse.
And my name is Karen Deep.
And today we are going to be talking about one of the 1001 albums that you need to listen to, Bringing It All Back Home by none other than Bob Dylan,
Wow.
the legend himself, who's still kicking, still releasing albums to this day.
And apparently he's still walking the streets of Toronto, so that's really exciting.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us the story?
There's this guy, very enthusiastic, saw my guitar waiting by the train station, and then he said, I saw Bob Dylan walking by here the other day, and what's the best way to say hello than singing my favorite song lyrics? And I just looked at this guy, and then I left.
It's like, I don't know if that actually happened. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's a real story. But, I mean, if it is, that would be sick.
Yeah,
That'd
it
be
could
super
it
cool.
could be. It could be.
Could be. I would be shaking in my boots if I saw Bob Dylan in real life. I'd be like, what do I say?
I might do the same. I might just sing song lyrics at him and see what happens.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So, some songs from this album, potentially?
Perhaps,
Yeah.
potentially.
Okay. Interesting.
One song in particular might be very appropriate that we'll get to later.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get to that. Let's start with the background of this album. So, taking it all the way back to 1965. That's a long time ago, Karen. Yeah. 1965. This was so the album name is Bring It All Back Home. Bob Dylan at this point in his career was still very much a folk artist only, like acoustic guitar, harmonica, vocals. That's it. On this album, he changes it up a little bit. He starts introducing hints of his future conversion to rock and roll, which is going to be very controversial in his career. And
Right.
I think it's literally the next album he gets more into the rock stuff, and his core folk fan base like freaks out and gets really mad at him for doing it. So this is kind of like the very last like mostly pure folk album for him, at least before his transition to rock for a bit. That's like the main background I have for this. I mean, otherwise, Bob Dylan, if you haven't heard of him, shame on you. Legendary folk artist known for his lyricism and his, I guess, political attitudes and really shaping folk and rock music in the 60s big time.
Yeah.
Being a huge influence on the Beatles, just all around like a music god, I feel like, in all aspects of the thing. Timothy Chalamet just played him in a movie.
Yes, that's something I definitely got to check out.
Yeah, I want to check it out too. I think he won an award for it as well.
Wow.
So, and he's singing. Timothy Chalamet was singing
We should
and everything
do an episode on that.
on the movie.
I think so, because
Yeah?
I'm sure the movie releases a soundtrack as well.
Yeah.
It might be interesting to see what his take on Bob Dylan is.
Yeah, for sure. Stay tuned, folks. We might be reviewing the soundtrack to that movie. So, album art. What do we think of the album art, Karen?
I think it's interesting. It would definitely catch my eye if I saw this on the shelf. Just give me a second. I'm gonna pull it up here.
Yeah, it's very like, I don't know. It seems very modern in a sense. Like, I love that is he in control of the camera? He's like taking a selfie almost, kind of.
I don't think so. It's not necessarily a selfie,
No.
but you definitely get this lens effect
Yeah,
that he's got going on.
super cool lens effect. Gets kind of trippy on the outer portions of the album. There's a mysterious woman in red behind him. It looks like they're just casually sitting in this kind of very posh living room with a nice fireplace or something.
Could be the White House.
Could be the White House. Yeah, could be the White House. He's sitting at home maybe, and it's Bringing It All Back Home is the
Yeah.
album name.
It's a little chaotic. He's got some magazines, maybe some records laying around.
Yeah,
It looks like a good time.
he looks serious too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's really looking into the camera, telling you he's bringing it all back home.
Yeah, I like it. If I saw this in the record store, I would consider buying it just off the album art.
It's clean, but also messy at the same time.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's got the classic kind of like 60s font and kind of like layout with the border, like
Yeah.
the border and everything.
I
So.
can feel that the white on the cover would age nicely in somebody's basement.
Age nicely. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Cool. All right. And then album name, I think it's pretty cool. Bring It All Back Home.
Yeah,
I like it. I like bringing things back home.
I do as well.
Yeah. So not much to say. I don't know. It's pretty good. Familiarity. How familiar are you with Bob Dylan in general or this album?
I know of Bob Dylan. I've heard a few songs. This album, not at all.
Mm.
So I'd say I appreciate from afar.
Okay. Yeah. I'm probably a little bit more familiar, but I've also never. I don't know if I've listened to a full album by Bob Dylan before.
Mm.
Unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
the hipsters will look down at me for that, but
Shame on you.
shame on me. But there's definitely several songs that I like from Bob Dylan that I'm familiar with. So, but this is definitely my first foray into a full album and like listening to something front and back from him. So let's get into it, man.
Yeah.
First song, Subterranean Homesick Blues. What'd you think?
Very lively, lots of
Yeah.
fun. I think the sound of the band was great. It was a great introduction to the album, in my opinion.
Yeah, very jingle. I wrote jingle jangle as my first note here. It's very
Yeah.
jingle jangly. Lots of fast paced lyrics going on. We get the classic Dylan harmonica in the song too. That's something he's like really famous for, is playing that harmonica.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. There's a fade out at the end. It goes by pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is definitely one of his legendary songs. I remember reading. So yeah.
It definitely stuck with me. It definitely was a standout track. I think it just, if I put the record on and that's the first thing I heard, I'll definitely be hooked. It'd make me want to put the record on again, just of how fun and lively it is for sure.
Yeah. And then the next one, She Belongs to Me. I think I like this even more. Like the lyrics, she's an artist and she don't look back. I was like, dang, that's pretty sick. I like that line.
Nice. Listening through this record, it was hard to keep track of all the lyrics.
Yes.
And it was almost like halfway through the record, I felt I was starting to get attuned to the lyrics, and really seeing that as a focus of it. So when this song came out, it kind of blended in with the first, and I kind of lost some of that definition for me.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy it. I had nothing much to say other than that. So
Yeah. And no, I can agree. That happened to me a bit later in the album, but at this point, everything was still felt fresh. Once again, I think every song has harmonica in it in this album.
I think so as well.
I was like trying to keep track. I was like, yep, this song, this song too. I think it's every single song there's harmonica. The lyrics for me in the song I really liked in general, like the repetition in the lyrics spoke to me. So yeah, I liked it. It's calmer vibe than the first one too. Then we move on to Maggie's Farm.
This felt like I was in a country town bar.
Yeah.
I felt like I was part of the whack community and just living it up in a rural town and enjoying a nice evening with the town folk.
You ain't working on Maggie's Farm no more.
Yeah.
This is the catchiest one for me for sure. Quitting his job type song. It's kind of swaggy, bluesy as well. So like moving away from pure folk and kind of bringing some blues to it.
Yeah.
There were weird parts with the harmonica where it was like teasing us, and it would start and then stop immediately, and it was like, why are you doing this, Bob Dylan? And then there's some humor in this one too, which I never really grasped from Bob Dylan before, but like I guess at least in this song I was like, oh, like he's using some humor, like Ma is 68 but says she's 54, and the way he said it in the context of the song, I was like, huh, that's funny.
Yeah, a couple of chuckles in there for sure.
Yeah, so some humor. But yeah, I don't know, the album kind of drops off a little bit for me, I think, as we go past this point. I don't know if you had anything to say about the next few, like Love Minus Zero, another mellow song, harmonica solo. Didn't really stay with me that much.
In this track, I really like the tambourine.
Okay.
Yeah, that was nice. That's my jingle jangle for that.
Yeah.
At this point, however, I started to. It reminded me of what I thought Bob Dylan was at this point in the record. I felt like this was familiar. This is what I thought Bob Dylan sounds like, and the tambourine was a nice mix in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing really stuck out to me for that one. The next one, though, there were some parts to this that did stick out. So the song's called Outlaw Blues. Very bluesy, as promised by the track, by the title.
Yep.
There's some touches of harmonica. But I think towards the end, there was a line that really kind of stuck out to me where he says, she's a brown-skinned woman, but I love her just the same. And this was a point in the album that it was like, okay, this is 1965.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is very much like this, at least this line in particular, is very much like a time capsule of like being from this era. Because in 2025, I don't think you'd find any artist who would ever say a line like this, right?
Yeah.
But if you go back to 1965, this is when the first Civil Rights Act in the States was passed, I think, right? This is like at the height of the civil rights movement. And so for this line to be a thing in this song, I could see it being like super relevant, right? Because there's a lot of still feelings about like, you know, some people are, I think, like pro segregation. And so this is like a very like revolutionary, I don't know, revolutionary line, but this is definitely a line in the song where Bob Dylan says, hey, I am a civil rights supporter. And if you're not a civil rights supporter, this song ain't for you. And I'm making that clear with this line.
Nice. It's a good catch.
Yeah.
Yeah. For this one, I just felt like the studio fades were getting kind of boring.
Yeah.
That's my biggest takeaway.
Okay. Yeah.
At this point, it felt nice in the first few tracks, but I was really hoping for like an arrangement where the band comes to a close musically rather than a studio fade. So, I mean, I didn't catch any of the lyrics. I was just distracted by the studio fade at the end, really. It felt like my memory of the song faded with the fade.
The studios. You didn't, you're just distracted by that.
Yeah.
You don't like the fade outs?
I like them, but I think with every song, I think all these songs on the album was just studio fades. And it got to the point where I felt like the ending of the songs couldn't stick with me because of that.
Yeah.
And they became less memorable. So I couldn't catch on. I couldn't hold in the moment what the message of each song was.
Right. Yeah, I think like it's common wisdom nowadays as musicians when you're like recording a song. If you're like making an album, you probably shouldn't have every song fade out. It's kind of like, what are you doing? Like, let's have a nice, thought through ending to your song, right? Like, you shouldn't just fade it. Like, you're almost using it as like you don't have any other ideas, so let's just fade out, right?
Yeah.
So
it feels like a jam band that just happened to fade out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a quick pause for a second because I'm noticing your camera there.
Ah, son of a bitch.
All right, we are back rolling. Sorry for the minor technical difficulty there, but we are so back. We're so ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
During that break, I actually had an opportunity to look at some of the songs I already had from Bob Dylan that I'd been listening to over the past few years before listening to this album. And so Tangled Up in Blue, one of my favorite songs from him. I remember listening to this one and being just like, wow, this is such a good song. Like a Rolling Stone, also very classic Bob Dylan song, and we'll probably review that album at some point too. I'm pretty sure it's on the 1001 albums list. I'd be shocked if it isn't. So yeah, we are talking about Bob Dylan. Let's keep rolling.
Yeah, let's keep rolling.
With Bringing It All Back Home, 1965 album. So let me just put a timer on here so that we know what we're doing. The next one that I wanted to talk. Did you want to keep talking about Maggie's Farm?
No.
No? Okay, let's move on to On the Road Again. On the road again. I can't wait to get on the road again. Who's that? Willie Nelson?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic. This one I really liked, despite the title of it.
Yeah.
Reminding me of Willie Nelson.
I just enjoyed this song. It was very fun. It kind of, the most lyrics kind of wash over me. I'm the type of listener that lyrics need a couple listens for me to kind of digest. So this one, it just kind of washed over me, but it was a very good vibe. It reminded me of the first track on the album. So I felt like it was a nice reprise, little energy lift. And yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good. It was a good, fun song.
So none of the lyrics are really hitting you, eh?
Not really. There's one song we'll get to that.
Okay.
The lyrics did hit me.
Okay.
For unconventional reasons, but we'll get there.
Ooh, okay. This one, once again, the humor this one was probably the funniest song for me.
Yeah.
Listening through it. So it starts off with a striking harmonica intro. So if you're a big harmonica fan, definitely give this album a listen, and specifically this song. There's some like trippy lyrics where he's kind of like, there's a lot of imagery going on. And then at some point towards the end, so he's talking about, I don't know, I forget exactly the tension in the song, but at one point he says, he's talking about like the tension in the town or something. And he goes, even the mailman has to take a side in the oh no, it's tension in a household.
Okay.
There's like a household and they're all living together and there's some arguments and he's like even the mailman who comes to the house has to take a side in the fighting that's going on in this house.
Wow.
And then he goes, "You ask why I don't live here anymore, honey, why don't you move? Like, why don't you get out of here? Because this is a toxic household. This is why I left."
I remember that line does come to mind. Yes,
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah, so I was like, wow, this is kind of cool, kind of funny. Like, I never really knew that Bob Dylan was funny, or, like had humor in his songs. I always knew he was considered like a master songwriter and very serious songwriter, but there's some humor in these tracks, which I
Yeah.
really liked. So I definitely got to see this side of Bob Dylan that I hadn't seen before.
That's great. It's good to know because I definitely had the perception that he's quite serious, very stark most of the time, just from his significance that I'm aware of.
Yeah,
But it also makes sense that he's humorous because in order to embrace the dark, you kind of have to have a light as well to balance it all out. And I find that the ones who embrace the darkest parts of life are often the most funny because humor comes from such a dark place.
Yeah.
It's a critique on those things in a way.
yeah,
So it's nice to hear his humor for sure.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's like all the comedians, right? They're always like, they have a very serious side to them, but that's what brings out their comedy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going to the next one, 115th Dream. I don't know. This one was fine. Some fun, nonsensical lyrics. Harmonica again.
Yeah.
Some cool electric piano. Other than that, yeah, it was pretty good. I didn't have a lot of
This
notes.
was my favorite.
This is your favorite. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I wrote it was fun and unhinged.
Cool. Yeah.
The absurdity of what he was talking about in the song really spoke to me.
Okay.
I think at this point, I heard some comedy, I heard some kind of wholesome tones, the fun band. And then when this came about, I just felt like he's just messing around. The one line that stuck with me was when I picked it up and said hello, his foot came through the line.
Oh, yeah. I remember that
Like,
lyric.
this is
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like singing about that back in the day must have been really fun. So
Yeah.
I really like that from this song.
Yeah, no, it's really funny how we're both like, oh yeah, I remember that line. Oh yeah, I remember that. Like they really do stick out in your brain, even after like one or two listens. And
You mentioned in our break that there might have been a guy holding cards in his performances.
yeah,
I feel like we could have used a guy holding some cards. There's a lot of words.
yeah. No, he has so many. Like sometimes he has like 12 verses in one song, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's how many lyrics he really packs into these songs. It's almost like a rap song in some sense. Like when he's like really talking or like singing fast and like going through these lyrics really quickly, it's like almost like a form of rapping in a sense.
Yeah.
And he's just got so many verses. And yeah, I remember hearing a story way back where he needed a guy to hold up cards, as you were saying, because he can't remember all these verses to like if he's playing like 15, 20 songs in a performance from like various albums, like no human can remember all these lyrics. So yeah, very lyric heavy no matter what album I think you're listening to from the good old Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Okay, so 115th Dream is your favorite. That's cool how we have different songs that kind of stuck out to us. Moving on, I feel like towards the end of this album, it did start getting a bit tiresome for me. Especially like the melody for Mr. Tambourine Man. I was just kind of like, it was very repetitive melody, and I was like, a quarter of the way through, I was like, hey, I'm done. Like he's not switching it up.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on here. The harmonica kind of saved us a little bit. But it still kind of slightly follows the melody, so I was like, wasn't my favorite song.
You really like the harmonica, eh?
I don't listen to a lot of harmonica. So with this album, it was like, okay, more harmonica. Interesting.
Nice.
But I like it. I actually do like harmonica, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was keeping track of it.
This song reminded me of Sing Me a Song of the Piano Man. There's a couple of melodies in this song that actually felt like that. Maybe the intro, something about the melody. And definitely the repetitive.
Yes. You got that too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got that.
So, I don't know. But Mr. Tambourine Man, like, again with the On the Road Again, Mr. Tambourine Man, like these are like Mr. Tambourine Man's a song from another, like a very famous song from another band. I think it's the Beards or the Birds, sorry, or something like that. It's
I
like,
didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny, like see it, like which I didn't do research on this one, but like which one came first. I'm pretty sure these ones did, but The Birds were in the 60s too, so it's like very close in time frame. But
Yeah.
anyways, moving on to Gates of Eden. This is a long one,
It is.
and this is where all of the songs start getting like 6 minutes, 7 minutes. And if you know anything about my taste in music, if you have a 7-minute song, it better be a good freaking song, okay? Because I get real tired real quick.
Yeah, you do.
And I got sleepy on my first time listening to this song. I was like, okay, and the gates of Eden. Like, well, let's move on here. Once again, there is harmonica in the song too. Every song.
This one had like a nice minor vibe. The chords are a little different. Kind of a somber tone.
Yeah.
Probably sleepy tone.
Yeah.
But it was a nice change, I think. Definitely very long. I don't think I made it through the whole thing. I think I had to skip at like 4 minutes, 4:30 minutes.
Blasphemy.
Fired. Yeah, just because I was like, okay, I want to get through this and see what's going on next. But it's a nice change in tone, I think, for this album. I think that the second half, like these last few songs, were more acoustic.
Yeah.
Not so much with the band. So it was a nice pleasant switch up by the end of it.
Yeah. I did make a note to revisit this song because I was like, I know the lyrics are really great in this song, but when I was listening to it the first time, mentally, I was just not. I just could like by this point, I was like, I can't be listening to lyrics. Like, I don't know, just not connecting with me. I also think I was on a plane. I was on a flight, and I had airplane mode on, so the lyrics weren't coming up for me on Apple Music.
Right.
So I couldn't follow along that way. So it's like I need to come back and listen to it, and I did, and I definitely appreciated the lyrics a lot more. And like listening to the song the second time around, I was like, oh, okay, I actually really like this song. Like, I'm vibing to it.
What do you think the song was about?
You're gonna call me out on this, eh? Yeah. It's like, oh, you claim you listen to the lyrics now, eh? You what? Great question. The Gates of Eden. I think he's in this track. He was talking about just like,
We can pull it up if you want.
Dude, call me out, bro. Because now I forget. But when I listened to the lyrics, I was like, okay. Like when I followed along, it was good. I think he's just talking about like hypocrisy in society, and
here you go. This is a refresher.
How dare you?
Give you a pass.
That's the thing. I remember going on what is it, Genius, and looking, and they were like, yeah, we're not really sure. But like it's open to interpretation. But there's a lot of imagery, right? We're talking about the Gates of Eden, and he ends each verse with like heading for the gates of Eden. So yeah, you know what? Good call out. I will say I didn't understand it more, but I had a new appreciation for it.
Great.
Because the imagery in it is very, very, what do you call it? Not stark. It's very...
subtle?
No.
Renaissance?
No. It's very bright and very in your face.
Vivid.
Vivid. That's the word I'm looking for, yeah. So yeah, listen to this song, see what you get from it, because there's a lot of things that are open to interpretation. Actually, I think this is also, he took inspiration from a poem. I remember reading that. There's like a very famous poem, and he kind of took inspiration from that poem.
If you know what that poem is, let us know in the comments.
Yeah. There are no kings inside the gates of Eden. What a cool line. And there are no sins inside the gates of Eden. It doesn't matter inside the gates of Eden.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like communism.
The gates of Eden is a communist society. I actually think there are references to like the Soviet Union and communism in that song, I think. There's definitely some in It's All Right, Ma, the next song, which is 7 minutes.
I enjoyed this one.
I did enjoy this one. This is another one I wanted to revisit. And I do have the meaning to this one, actually,
okay,
Karen.
Great.
This one is basically a song saying that everything sucks and is stupid and nothing matters because we're all going to die. And so look at all these humans, these human folk pretending like they have any meaning to their lives and like worrying about scrupulous things that don't actually matter, because at the end of the day, we're all going to be 6 feet under.
Yeah.
But We should all, and then I think in the song he kind of makes reference to like we should all just live our lives remembering that we'll die, and that will make for a better existence. You know.
Yeah.
So
I love this one because it reminded me of Sikh Kirtan, which is like the traditional religious chant that the Sikh culture does. It's the way the sentence it felt more like a melodicized reading passage
yeah.
than it felt like a folk song.
Mm.
The his rhythmic cadences with his melodies were like always asymmetrical.
Okay.
It didn't feel like alternating lines that rhyme all the time, but there was some cohesion going on.
Yeah.
And I can just tell that he needed to get these words out in a particular order that had the meaning and had the feeling of it, and it was really nice. It was a nice 7 minutes of just kind of like meditative, almost chanting like process.
Yeah.
I'm pulling up the lyrics here to see some things here.
I'm pulling up on Genius because I remember reading this too. So the rhyme scheme in
Verse
this is legendary.
15, holy moly!
Yeah, there's 15 verses. Yeah, we're not lying, folks, when we say there's a ton of verses. And in this particular song, the rhyming scheme is like pretty legendary because let me read it. They call it an epic. The epic nested rhyme scheme on this is genius.com. So this is not like some, this is basically the Wikipedia of,
I'm
of like
intrigued.
lyrics meanings. But it's like BBBA, CCCA, DDDA, EEFE. I don't know. It's just an interesting rhyme scheme and definitely one that you don't hear a lot in pop music.
Yeah, like each verse kind of stood on its own and had its own character.
Yeah.
And then there was a hook, and then again another verse kind of getting to a point in its own way.
Yeah.
It had like, not only were the verses lyrical ideas of themselves, but the rhythmic rhyming of them also catered to those lyrics.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like maybe in modern hip hop music, we have rappers or guest rappers come in and they collaborate, and they each have their own flow and their own section. They may have a couple of changes in their sections, whether how big or short or long it is. But I feel like he did that with every verse going forward in the song on his own.
Yeah.
And it was really nice to hear that variety and that kind of meditative process pulling you through this whole like pretty dark kind of disjunct introspection of what he's talking about. Yeah, it's pretty heavy, this one.
You have the lyrics actually?
Yeah. Check it out.
The second time around listening to this song, I was pretty. I really like the lyrics in this, and he's moving quickly through these lyrics, right? Because it's a 7-minute song, but it's 15 verses. Like if you have 15 verses, I could see it being like a 20-minute song. But that's how quickly he's rifling through each lyric or each verse.
Yeah, like I would have a really hard time transcribing this melody because of the rhythmic nuances that go into play with this one.
Yeah. So lots of really great stuff in this song. I'm definitely going to come back and listen to this again because like I'm going through this in my mind right now, and I'm remembering how like it's a catchy song too. So not only are there a ton of verses, it's catchy.
Yeah.
And it's intense. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
It's great.
So I definitely recommend that one, and I'm pretty sure it's one of the standout tracks on this album in terms of like music history. So, and then it moves on to "It's All Over Now, Baby Blue," which I think is another pretty famous track off this album. What did you think of this one?
This one felt a little rough.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a recording, but it felt a little different than the rest of the album.
The singing is probably the hardest to listen to on this track than any other track on this album. And I was really mentally preparing myself because it's like, okay, it's Bob Dylan. Everyone makes fun of Bob Dylan's voice. It's very much like Cilantro, Bob Dylan's voice.
This was a soap track.
This was a soap track. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Because like, I think like they've done studies on this. Like 50% of the population likes Cilantro and the other 50% hate it.
Yeah.
And it's very much like with Bob Dylan's voice. 50% of the population likes his voice and the other does not.
Yeah.
And this one, I could see why people would not like his voice. But this is the only one. All the other tracks, I was like, I like Bob Dylan's voice. It's good.
Yeah.
It works. But this one, I was like, kind of gritting my teeth. Like, it's not working for me.
It wasn't working for me either. And I just felt like this being the last track on the album shouldn't have been the last track on the album. Like if it ended with It's All Right, Ma, that would have been a lot better for me.
Yeah, that would have been pretty sick. I will say, reading about this track, people think that It's All Over Now is kind of in reference to, hey, I'm done with this folk stuff. My next album, I'm leaning heavy into the rock stuff, which he did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Like a Rolling Stone came out, which is like considered his best song. I think even Rolling Stone puts that song as like the 5th best song of all time.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool.
Wow.
And he also said that's his best song he's ever written when it came out like right after this album.
Mm-hmm.
So people think he's giving a message to his folk fans like, hey, I'm done with this folk stuff for a bit. Be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
It's all over now, baby blue. So I think it's a pretty cool message. He just needed to sing better.
Yeah.
He just needed to sing better, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah. Overall, let's talk about the album now and give our scores here.
Yes.
Overall, I highly recommend listening to this album. I enjoyed it. There are very few misses for me. It just got a little bit long towards the end, and you really have to kind of sit down and listen to the lyrics and read the lyrics to appreciate them fully. So my score out of 5 stars. So I'm going to give a score out of 5. Karen is going to give a score out of 5. And then we're going to put it together for a combined score out of 10. And we'll see if it meets our very famous, legendary distinction, Golden Note distinction. Did I mention the name of our podcast?
This is the Golden Note
podcast, folks. So
welcome.
Please subscribe after this video if you like it. Yeah. My score out of 5 is 4 out of 5.
Holy moly!
Very safe, in my opinion.
You're a positive man.
I think it's good. I think it's really good.
Yeah.
Karen's gonna give it like a 0.5 out of 5.
You think it's good? I'm gonna give it a 3.
Okay.
I enjoyed the sounds. The band sounds are very lively. I really enjoyed that character. I think his lyricism was very interesting, and I can see why people enjoy Bob Dylan from different angles, comedic, absurd, and pretty heavy topics as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very diverse character. But I felt like overall, listening through this album, certain songs kind of washed over me. There's just kind of a lot going on.
Yeah.
Nothing particularly really stood out to me other than a few moments. There wasn't any misses per se, but other than the last one. So it felt like it kind of washed over me. That's why it's a 3.
Yeah.
But I think if I was listening to this more around the time it released, like if I was alive that time, I might have given it a 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So my score is a 3, but
nice.
Back then it would have been a 4.
I understand it. I can respect it.
Cool.
All right. So 7 out of 10 score for Bringing It All Back Home by Bob Dylan. Thank you so much to everyone for listening. And like I said, if you like it, please consider subscribing. Give us a like. Let us know in the comments what you think. And hopefully we see you again at the Golden Note podcast in our little home of the internet.
Yes. Welcome to my home.
Welcome to our home.
Our home.
Our humble abode.
Comrades.
All right. Have a good one. We'll see you later.
See ya.